Neutralization is sometimes associated with more damage, and the collagen synthesis inhibitors are also tried but without much benefit. The role of corticosteroids in a systematic study of more than 6 studies from Europe, it does not prevent the development of these strictures. Antibiotics are useful, especially when there is a secondary infection, but their use in limiting the strictures is not established. In the acute stage, the surgery is indicated when there is a bowel necrosis and perforation. The necrosis may involve the esophagus, the stomach, or sometimes even the duodenum, though it is very rare and associated with high mortality. And in these patients, aggressive surgical resection with reconstruction and a feeding jejunostomy is useful. Among the patients who need subsequent nutritional support, a jejunostomy or a gastrostomy is most often done. And though it is said that gastrostomy prevents the subsequent pulling up of the stomach, it is really not so. When it is done away from the vascular arches, it actually keeps the stomach dilated, and it helps in gastric pull-up. And also the patient can take near normal food. This young girl who consumed acid, subsequently with a gastrostomy, she became pregnant and even delivered a child. Now I come to the second part of the lecture, where I will talk on the strictures of the various organs like esophagus, stomach, and pharynx. These strictures have a negative impact on the quality of life, producing malnutrition and retardation of growth and so on. And most often it is diagnosed using an endoscopy or a barium swallow. In a barium swallow, you see usually a thin barium beyond the stricture, but that doesn't mean it is a long stricture. We have devised a method wherein we pass a small tube and inject air, and that will dilute. A air esophagogram will dilate the esophagus which is distal to it, and it will tell exactly the length of the stricture. And the main method of treatment of these strictures is by dilatation. And you have got the Savary Guillard dilators, which are most often used, and also the through the scope balloon dilators. And of course, you always stick to the rule of 3, where you don't dilate more than that to avoid unnecessary morbidity. Steroid injection during dilatation does improve the results. As I said, the dilatation is the first line of management in esophageal strictures, and this is supported by several studies. Of course, of late, the biodegradable stents are being tried, and this is made of polymer polydioxanone, and it exerts a radial force which lasts almost 3 to 6 months, and by the time it disintegrates. It is relatively effective and safe, and improves the quality of life and avoids the morbidity and mortality of surgery, especially in refractory benign strictures. The dilatation is not without complications, and it ends up in perforation sometimes. Covered self-expanding metallic stents are used, though not it's recommended by guidelines. And if the patient presents with complications, they may need a transhiatal esophagectomy with reconstruction. Some of the patients may not be fit for that. They need to have a intercostal drainage wherever there is a collection, and tracheostomy. In a collection of 13 series, the trend favors aggressive management, wherein you go and remove the perforated organ and replace it with either stomach or the colon. However, some of the patients can be conservatively treated, like if it is detected early and those who present without shock or sepsis, and in the absence of pneumothorax, pneumoperitoneum, pneumomediastinum. Localized strictures in the cervical esophagus which cannot be dilated can be treated by a stricturoplasty. This is a very short segment stricture, and a perioperative endoscopy was done to make sure that there was no distal structures, and a stricturoplasty was done in this case. Anastomotic stricture after a pharyngeal anastomosis or following a cervical leak is treated by dilatation, sometimes by surgical revision. Patient can be taught a self-dilatation, and sometimes they do it very regularly so that they can eat well. Though malignancy in a conduit is very rare, we have encountered a few cases. This is in a subcutaneous stomach, and this is a malignancy that's developed and that was excised locally without disturbing the blood supply. Some of the innovations are use staplers in cervical anastomosis, and of course we have devised the camera sheath method to deliver the conduit to the neck without putting the blood supply into peril. Some of the complications of the conduit are conduit necrosis, and they may need removal of the conduit, pharyngostomy, feeding gynostomy, and they have to need a revision surgery later. This patient who had a colon conduit has got a necrosis. Fortunately, the necrosis was limited to the distal tip, so it was revised subsequently. Leaks can occur, but intrathoracic leaks are dangerous. However, we always do a cervical anastomosis, and cervical anastomotic leaks can be managed very easily. And when they develop a stricture later on, they can manage by dilatation. In a series of 134 cases, we mainly use stomach and colon in the later part of the study, and the dysphagia rate is almost, relief is 89% and 74% in stomach and colon respectively. However, the patient has got a pharyngeal stricture, the relief of dysphagia becomes much less. Ladies and gentlemen, at conclusion, I would like to say that surgery offers excellent results except in pharyngeal strictures. Expertise and meticulous attention to the technique gives very good results, and colon and stomach are often used, and one should use whichever he is familiar with. Most of these patients need rehabilitation to put them into the life stream, and the treatment has to be individualized according to the organ and extent of involvement, so that the patient can have a fruitful life subsequently. This is a successful patient, and it's a teamwork involving the anesthetist, physician, and the surgeons, GI surgeons. One should not forget the fact that prevention is very essential, and the hazardous material should be kept away from children. It should be labeled properly, and the bottle should not be equivalent to a drinking water bottle, and the containers has to be kept in a separate place. And those who need psychological support during stress time should be provided, and they should be educated not to resort to the injection. It is true that surgeons saved patients, but the patients rescued us in turn and give meaning to what we did or trying to do. These are the famous words of Thomas Tossell, the first liver transplant surgeon from Pittsburgh. I once again sincerely thank for the opportunity for giving me this honor of giving the Professor NMG oration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for this illuminating Professor N. Madanagopal oration. On behalf of Tamil Nadu ISG, I find it a deep pleasure and honor to present this plaque and this scroll to the orator, Professor Ratnasamy.